Michael and I decided to create a presentation based on cybersecurity and how it relates to the accounting industry. We wanted to look at this because we both realized that as time goes on, these threats will just occur more frequently as we go into a digital era. And both of us will be working in this industry, so we just wanted to make sure we were comfortable with learning as much as we could about it. So briefly throughout this presentation, we'll just talk about cybersecurity, the benefits of it, the threats, prevention, some global threats. We'll bring up some big examples of data breaches that did occur in the 21st century, and then we'll move into, how tax information can be compromised, what type of information in accounting is targeted, and then we'll end with, how COVID has impacted the security during the tax season. So what is cybersecurity? It refers to the body of technologies, processes, and practices designed to protect networks that we have, devices we have, programs and data from unauthorized access and damage. So why is it important? It's because every industry has unprecedented amounts of data, and we really do not want this information to be damaged or stolen. In addition to the data that's stored, stuff can be stolen when the data is transmitted through different networks. So we need some stuff in place, like cybersecurity, so that when we're doing business across the globe or across the nation, this information isn't damaged or stolen. So for the cybersecurity to be effective, all of our different security measures need to be lined up effectively, and this includes, as you see there, the list of different types of security that need to be up to date and on lock when we implement cybersecurity. So like network security, for example, this is the process of protecting your network from outside users and their attacks. Application security is the apps you have on your phone or on your computer. These require constant updates and testing to make sure that these programs are secure from attacks. Outdated stuff is easily attackable. Endpoint security, this is remote access. It's a necessary part of business, but can be a very weak point that cyber criminals can attack. And there's a few others there, like cloud security. Many of our files in this day and age are digital, or in the cloud as we call it. Protecting this information is extremely valuable, and we need to make sure all of these different types of security are connected and up to date. So let's talk about just some of the benefits, like why do we have cybersecurity? This includes, we want to protect our businesses against malware, ransomware, phishing, and social engineering. These are types of attacks that occur. We'll go over that. You want to protect your data. You don't want this stuff stolen. You don't want people to get access to it that shouldn't have access to it. Cybersecurity also helps when something is breached, that you can update it and fix it quickly. It also doesn't just provide benefits for the companies, but also for the end user, the customers. Their information won't get stolen if they use a certain website like Amazon or Facebook. Additionally, automation, advances in AI and machine learning have helped in this area with large databases and data streams. AI and machine learning can go into these huge vasts of data and do these three or four things listed. The automation can correlate data. This focuses on organizing this information, identifying possible threats that could occur, and they predict next steps so that these attacks don't happen. You also have detecting infections. This is where automation focuses on having a security platform analyze data, recognize threats, and create on its own different security measures. And then there's also, generating protections. AI can create protections on its own based on past attacks, and then there's implementing protections. So AI can do this itself. So what are some of the common methods that cyber criminals use to break into data or databases? So one of the most common we see is phishing, and this is the practice of sending fraudulent emails that resemble emails from reputable sources. I'm sure you guys have gotten one of these in your life before. They just aim to steal sensitive data like credit cards or login information or passport information. And this is the most common type. Then you have malware, which is a type of software designed to gain unauthorized access or to cause damage to your device. It's, again, often spread through an unsolicited email attachment like a fake PDF or a legitimate looking download, maybe like a Word document. And this is used, either to make money, to steal information, or, sometimes even political attacks. We've seen that over the past few years. And then right there in the underlined section, you can see the various different types of malware, including viruses, Trojans, and specifically Trojans we'll talk about later, but these are a type of malware that is disguised as legitimate software, and they trick us by uploading these Trojans onto a computer that can then cause later damage. We also have spyware, ransomware. Ransomware is, designed to, just like the name says, to extort money by blocking access to certain files on your computer or network. And then some other ways these cyber criminals work is they use social engineering, which is a tactic that these criminals use to trick you into revealing sensitive information. This social engineering can also be combined with any of the malware, different types of malware above. You also have an SQL injection. So as you guys probably know, SQL is a type of structured language query, and they inject this. It's a type of cyber attack where they inject this into your computer, and it steals data from a database. It kind of runs code, and the malicious code then gets into your data and damages it or steals it. And then finally, you have the man-in-the-middle attack, which is another common type of threat used. And this is where the cyber criminal, intercepts communication between two individuals in order to steal that data. For example, think if you're on a unsecure Wi-Fi network, the attacker could intercept, what you're sending to someone else if the network is not secure. So here are some just general tips and solutions. I'll go over these briefly. I'll leave this information up if you want to look at it when you see all these slides later. But, the general tips for safety to protect yourself against cyber attacks that occur, always update your software and operating system. You'll benefit from the latest patches. If you have outdated stuff, it's easily accessible for criminals. Use antivirus software. I think Macintoshes kind of come with that, which is a cool thing. Use strong passwords. Don't open email attachments from unknown senders. Avoid using Wi-Fi in public places. And then more in-depth solutions is, predictive analysis, which again is kind of like machine learning. The machine learning helps you know what an attack looks like, when it's likely to occur, where it's coming from. So the predictive analytics software can gather huge amounts of data from past attacks and kind of research that, analyze it, and figure out how to best create solutions so that this doesn't happen to your business or company. And then two other things are, always back up your data. You don't want to be in a situation where it's stolen or ransomware has occurred, and then you're like, well, that's the only stuff I had, so I'm kind of, screwed. And then there's also cyber insurance, which is becoming more and more common. 10, 20 years ago, this was an option, and most people didn't use it. But now, as cyber criminals are becoming more advanced, kind of everyone's using the cyber insurance, where if you are attacked, you can kind of recoup those losses pretty easily. So, in addition to those solutions I mentioned, here's ways you can prevent needing to use those solutions. So, just limit the amount of people who have access to the data that you own. You don't need to give your lower level employees access to everything in the company. Understand those third-party vendors you're using so that they comply with your internal security measures. And then continuously train your employees. Let them know what the security measures are. Make sure they know, have some education every month or quarter telling them, continuously update your passwords. Here's how to recognize a phishing attempt. Always check your hyperlinks before clicking on them. Stuff like that. Education is always a good thing. Also, you want to develop a breach response plan. So if your data is breached, you have a good way to fix that. So here's some more prevention ideas. I won't go over all of them just because we want to get into the accounting stuff. So these are just some more prevention ideas that if you guys want to go back and look at, you're more than welcome to. It definitely helped me when I was thinking about how can I best prevent cybersecurity attacks when I'm working in the accounting field in a few short months. So we'll skip that slide for now. So now I'll talk about recent and increasing cyber threats from around the globe. So this is taken from some information from the UK, some from the US, and then some from Australia. So this thing called Dridex malware, this occurred very recently. A Dridex malware attack happened, and the cyber criminal was then went to court and then is now in jail. So this campaign, this malicious attack affected the public, government, and business industries worldwide. So you may be wondering what Dridex is. It's one of those Trojan malwares that we mentioned before. You get it into a system and it has a plethora of capabilities. It can attack multiple servers, multiple networks, and its main focus is to steal passwords and banking details, and that's what happened here. So that was a big thing that occurred. We're often seeing romance scams, on all these different computers and applications. People are being they're losing finances just because of they're trusting people. And then Emotet malware. This was in Australia, and again, this was sophisticated malware that can steal data and also load other types of malware onto your device. And this happened in late 2019, and it thrives on unsophisticated passwords. So make sure you're always updating those. These are three of the biggest 21st century data breaches that occurred. So I'll briefly talk about them. As you can see, it was LinkedIn, Quora, and Marriott Hotels. So in 2012, 165 million users had their accounts hacked. You may be wondering, how did this happen? It's reported that there was some weak user passwords, and there was a failure on LinkedIn's part to salt the data before encrypting it. And salting data makes it harder to crack. This refers to instead of just listing down the data for the passwords, it adds unique additional information to each password before running it through a cryptographic hashing algorithm. So LinkedIn was using SHA-1 to hash the passwords instead of salt. So, and security experts said, this outdated type of hashing is not fit for securing passwords. And then the Marriott Hotels breach was also pretty large, and this was actually more serious. A lot of credit card information and passport information was stolen. Investigators, they found out that the way this happened was through a remote access Trojan combined with Mimikatz, which was a tool for sniffing out these password combinations, and they gave the criminals, the administrator account, and they were able to steal a ton of stuff. But the investigators also found out that, Marriott was storing their encrypted information in the same place where they stored the encryption keys. So it was kind of both Marriott's fault and the criminal's fault. Yeah, so this is just a little image and graph showing some passwords that LinkedIn users were using during that hack. As you can see, a ton of people were just kind of saying, okay, my password will be 123456 or LinkedIn or password. And you never want to do this, or else in this day and age, your information will be hacked. So some more threats, just going over again, as we go into 2020 and beyond, these attackers, they're becoming more sophisticated. They're using machine learning with phishing, because they've gotten info from the past 5 years, 10 years. They know what new companies are doing to make sure that cybersecurity is up to date. They're taking this info and they're making their plans more sophisticated, along with the introduction of cryptocurrency. Criminals are hijacking networks and then mining on those networks. And lastly, not just financial crimes are happening, but state-sponsored attacks are happening. And these are, where hackers are not only looking to steal finances, but they're also trying to influence government and critical areas. So before I pass it off to Michael, I'm going to talk about one incident in accounting where a cybersecurity breach occurred. So I'm sure some of you have heard of the company, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but Wolters Kluwer. It previously was CCH. In May of 2019, this multi-billion-dollar company that provides, it's kind of similar to QuickBooks. It provides accounting and software as a service, tax and accounting services. And this was attacked by malware. Customers had their information taken, and the applications were immediately shut offline during early May. So, May 15th was the filing deadline. So a lot of accounting firms that used this service were getting close to a deadline, and were like, hey, what are we going to do? This really affected their bottom line. So, this just shows how critical these cybersecurity threats are. This huge company was taken down by malware right before they had a lot of tax stuff to file. So, the lesson from this is, it's absolutely vital to have cyber insurance policy ready for attacks. You need to know what prevention techniques are. The investigators found that, this company was ignoring cybersecurity measures, and I believe they got a fine for it.
All right, thank you, Emmett, for a brief overview of cybersecurity and some real-world examples. So, just the focus of our presentation, we're all going to be in the accounting field, so we need to know how cybersecurity affects everybody, but we need to focus on how it affects us and tax especially. So, according to James Bork, he's the managing director of a top 100 firm. He said that. He said that the biggest threats to CPAs are, I accidentally went to the wrong slide. The biggest threats to CPAs are unauthorized access to their clients' data. So, and according to the IRS, between 5 and 7 firms are breached a week, have a data breach per week. And that's pretty alarming. That's definitely, it's only going to get worse with the virtual environment we're in. And 91% of these data breaches are from phishing. So it's just from a regular email with it looks legitimate, but the link takes you to a website and it prompts you to enter information, and it's everything looks legitimate, but it's definitely a scam, and they're gonna install malware or ransomware on your computer, and it's just gonna cause many issues for you and your clients. Another way that hackers get through the firewalls are through outdated software. So Big Four, they're usually on point, but the small to mid-sized firms, they don't have a formal IT department. Because in my personal experience, I worked at a small firm, and our IT department was the controller, and she had a lot of other things on her plate. And the software, it wasn't, cutting edge or anything. So they could easily, compromise the systems with weak passwords, like Emmett said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and even have automated programs and algorithms, these hackers, to get through. And also, people use their personal devices now. Like, even before COVID, more people were, communicating with clients on their phone or their coworkers via text message, and there's no protection on there. There's no antivirus. So what do they target? They target, any basic information could be weaponized for these hackers, and especially during tax season, tax information, it's the holy grail for hackers, virtual gold mine. They, as you see on the right, we have a standard tax return 1040, and, basic name, marital status, address, social security numbers. That could easily be used against people with, it could open up fake accounts. They could even, sign up for credit cards with this information. Basically anything, there's no limits to what they could do. And with family information, they could even, emails, they could guess passwords to your accounts, with with email. They could hit the forgot your password button, and they go in and they could use family information or whatever information they have to guess the passwords. It's pretty scary. And the same with employer information. When it comes to insurance claims or invoices, that information be compromised, as well as health information. You could have false insurance claims or prescription fraud for the hackers, and all this information could be put out there on the dark web for sale. And medical information is number one on the list. That goes for the most. It's a hot commodity. And as we saw, COVID hit during tax season, which is probably the worst time for it to hit for an accountant, because tax season, it's an opportunistic time for cybercrime. So having everyone remote all of a sudden, everything changed really quickly. So IRS commissioner, he had a great quote: "Criminals seize on every opportunity to exploit bad situations, and this pandemic is no exception." True. And with everyone working remote, they don't have their home computers. They have their regular antivirus software, or they might not have any. So there's no VPN. And the office computer, they have the VPN, more firewalls, more restrictions to the websites you could browse. Meanwhile, the home networks are a lot less secure. And they use social engineering tactics, these hackers, because, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, no one knew what was going on, what was true. They changed the tax filing deadline. There's just a lot happening. Is there going to be different deductions? People didn't know, so they got an email saying, "Oh, important update regarding COVID-19 ramifications." People would click on it if it looked legitimate, just to get some clarity on what's going on. And also, since it was tax season, people were getting their tax returns and the stimulus checks from the government, so hackers could easily use social engineering or other tactics to exploit that situation. And are accounts liable for cyber breaches? Yes. And that is because the Gramm-Leach-Billy Act requires companies that are financial institutions to ensure the security and confidentiality of consumer information. So tax professionals are financial institutions, CPAs are under that umbrella. So the FTC, as part of this act, issued the safeguard rule, and they required institutions to have measures in place to keep information secure. So, every firm is different sizes. So it's not really a uniform policy, but they just want people to, have controls in place, have somebody overseeing their cybersecurity and their information. And there are penalties if you violate this for people that aren't in compliance. The institution itself could be fined up to $100,000. An officer and directors could be fined up to $10,000. And in very extreme cases, you could be imprisoned up to 5 years. So, you're in the client business. You need to look out for your consumers and their data. Or just besides from these penalties, you could lose trust with the client. You lose future business, harm your reputation. So cybersecurity is a must, and it's not going away anytime soon. And that is all. Thank you for listening, everybody.